Oh,
Good evening, everyone. Hope we can you all hear us? Those people who are remote, can you hear me?
yes.
Excellent.
Yes,
And
can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alistair Bradley. I'm leader of Chorley Council. I'm going to open this meeting and I'm going to ask for a nomination to appoint a chair for this evening's meeting. Anybody like to propose a chair for this evening's meeting? Yes, Councillor Sharples.
Could I propose Councillor Bradley?
Thank you, and thank you. All those in favour who can vote? Okay, any against? I'll take silence as being approval. So thank you for that. Right, obviously this is a meeting of the Central Lancashire Strategic Planning Joint Advisory Committee. If you're not here for that, then you're in the wrong place. I'd like to welcome any new members to this committee who haven't been on it before. There are some new faces in the room. Obviously members and any members of the public attending are reminded that it will be streamed live on YouTube, and therefore bear that in mind. Please raise your hand if you're dialing in remotely if you wish to speak, and I'll try and spot you on the screen. They're quite a long way away, but we'll try and spot you. And there are no plans for a fire alarm, so if the fire alarm does go off, the way out of this room here is along the corridor and out to the back next to the police station, and you assemble there, follow myself. I'm just conscious of, I'd like people to introduce themselves so everybody knows who's in the room, if that's okay. As I've said, I've already introduced myself. We'll go around this way. June, if you go first, please. Put your microphone on.
I did. You didn't give me a chance.
Everybody else, if you want to put your microphone on, press the button, the red light comes on, then you're good to go.
I'm June Molyneux. I'm Councillor Chorley Borough for Adlington and an area, and I'm also Chair of Planning Committee.
Good evening, everyone. Councillor Alex Hilton, Cabinet Member for Planning and Development, Chorley Council.
Benjamin Vickers, Team Leader at South Ribble Council.
Good evening, I'm Chris Hayward, Director of Development and Housing at Preston City Council.
Good evening, Councillor Caleb Tomlinson, and I'm the Chair of Planning at South Ribble Borough Council.
Councillor Colin Sharples, Cabinet Member for Economic Growth and Planning at South Ribble Borough Council.
Gail Wooden, I'm the Director of Planning and Property at both Chorley and South Ribble Borough Councils.
Elizabeth Thornber, Head of Planning and Enforcement at South Ribble.
Vicky Thompson-Spears, Planning Policy Officer at Chorley.
Zoe Whiteside, Head of Spatial Planning at Chorley.
Carolyn Williams, Planning Policy Manager at Preston City Council.
Georgia Smith, Planning Officer at Preston Council.
Sean Knight, Planning Officer at Preston City Council. Eric Walk, Project Manager for Central Lancashire Local Plan.
Okay, everybody else has opportunity here in attendance. Online, Amber, could you just introduce yourself and then nominate somebody else who's on the screen, please, and move around that way. If you want to keep nominating.
Thanks, Chair. I'm Councillor Amber Afzal, Cabinet Member for Planning and Regulation at Preston City Council, and I will nominate Councillor Thompson to go next.
Oh, thank you. I'm Councillor Stephen Thompson, Preston Rural North, and I'm going to nominate Elaine Stringfellow.
Hello, I'm Councillor Elaine Stringfellow, Vice Chair of Planning at South Ribble Borough Council and Ward Councillor for Lostock Hall. And I'll nominate Phil Smith, Councillor Smith. Not there. Will I nominate Catherine Greenwood then?
Hi, I'm Catherine Greenwood. I'm the Planning Policy Team Leader at Chorley Council.
And nominating Catherine to go next. Who's left?
Simon Gummer, Councillor Simon Gummer.
Hey, I'm Simon Gummer, Councillor for Lost Hall and Bamber Bridge. Yeah, thank you very much.
And who have you got left, Simon, after that? There's Phil Smith, who we all know, and doesn't need any introduction whatsoever. And the last one, RN, I can't read that from here.
That's all I can see. Yeah, on mine as well, yeah.
Okay. No? Right, we'll crack on. Right, enough of that. Right, have we any apologies for absence, Ben?
None that I'm aware of, Chair.
Right, anybody else got any? Yes, Gail.
Marcus Hudson and the council rep from the County Council have sent their apologies.
Right, noted. Thank you for that. Has anybody got any declarations of interest in line with item 4? If so, say it now. No. In that case, we'll move on for those people who were here at the last meeting with the minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of December, which was circulated with the papers. I'm happy to propose those because I was here. Anybody else wish to second those or raise any issues on those minutes? Who was involved?
I'm quite happy to second that, Chair.
Right, okay, thank you, Alex. All those in favour, please show. Anybody against at all? No, right, they're accepted as minutes. We come to the first item of business proper, which is item 6, which is a Preston Council update on HMOs and policy approach, and that will be Carolyn Williams from Preston. Take it away, Carolyn.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's myself and colleagues this evening, so you've got a trio of us presenting to you. So I'm just going to talk you through the work that we've been doing in regards to houses of multiple occupation in Preston, the evidence base we've prepared, the consultations and work going forward to implement a change in HMOs. It's gone too far then. How's it gone too far? It's right on the, it's not started at the start of the presentation. Do it through there. Where do I? It's not changing from here.
Go back to the start and then we'll go back to slide, please, and all that.
Yeah, it's right at the end of the presentation for some reason.
Are we good to go?
Do you want me to try now?
You have to do it by remote control then.
We might have to do next slide, please.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so this first section is just talking about the existing controls that are in place. So as this slide sets out, there are 2 different types of HMOs. So I wasn't sure if you all understand the different approaches. So houses of multiple occupation fall into 2 different classes. Up to 6 residents, so that's small HMOs between 3 and 6 unrelated households. And they are households that share basic amenities such as kitchens or bathrooms. The ones up to 6 residents can be delivered under permitted development rights. The other section is more than 6 residents, and these tend to be dealt with under sui generis. So these are not classified under any standard use classes, meaning it's in a class of its own. And these typically apply to the larger HMOs with 7 or more unrelated occupants, again, sharing facilities, and these do require planning permission. Next slide, please. So, as I say, the first ones, the C3 to C4, are dealt with under permitted development rights. So under this, I say up to 6 units or six rooms in a household can be done through the permitted development rights, meaning there is no need for planning permission from the local authority. Now, you know, that's where I guess some of the concerns arise around managing issues around amenity. Permitted development rights can be removed through the local authority by means of condition, as we've started here, or by an Article 4 direction. So if it's had planning permission, you can apply conditions there, but not all HMOs, as you've noticed then, require planning permission. So those ones up to 6, without that, the Article 4 direction is the only way we have got currently of providing any further requirements on them. Next slide, please. But it's need to be clear about what an Article 4 direction can and cannot do. So as I say, it only removes the permitted development rights from converting a property from a class C3 into a small HMO class 4. So in these circumstances, in the areas where an Article 4 direction is being put into place, anybody who wants to have a HMO in those locations would have to apply for planning permission. It is not a removal of any reason to apply planning approval, though. So even if you have the Article 4 direction in place, all that requires is in those areas that we get a planning application coming forward, and then we can consider that. And that does allow us to apply some greater levels of control. So in Preston, currently, we do have a policy, and it does address issues around amenity, really, you know, the uses that impact on the neighbouring properties. So it cannot refuse permission, as noted there, for a conversion. It does not remove existing permissions or stop HMOs from operating. So where there are Article 4s in place, and we have a number which I'll go show on a map currently in Preston, where they are in existence, they will remain in existence unless, say, if they change ownership and they apply for planning permission, in which case we may be able to do some of the controls on it. It doesn't remove any of the permitted development rights as well. So that's an important thing to note. So there are concerns with property owners in those areas that we're removing any right to do any changes on their properties that will be covered by permitted development rights. It doesn't do that. But I think emphasising for members here that it doesn't do anything about existing HMOs. They will continue to operate as they are. Next slide, please. So this slide here shows you currently where we have an Article 4 direction in place within Preston. And there's a map that will come on to a little bit later, I think, when my colleagues are talking about the evidence that actually shows the correlation where we've got these Article 4 directions, where we currently have a massing of HMOs in those locations. So they have been specifically set up because we knew we had an influx of high numbers of HMOs, and in some circumstances whole streets operating as HMOs. So that just literally shows you currently where it is in place. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I'm going to be passing on to my colleague Georgia to talk through the existing work that we've been doing in preparing evidence.
Thanks, Carolyn. So I'm going to talk a bit about the review that the team has been undertaking on the existing Article 4 direction. Next slide, please. So why did we do an Article 4 review? It's because the Article 4 direction has now been in place for 12 years. And so the aim of it was to assess how effective the direction has been in controlling the change of use from C3 to C4, sorry. And if there's any need for a different policy approach. So this was done through an evidence document that you can see on the right-hand side there. There's a link at the end of the presentation if you'd like to view that online. And that explored numerous different topics and data sources, and was part of a wider council approach. We worked with many different teams to collect different data. And the key findings from that work was there's a significant number of HMOs throughout Preston, notably in the city centre wards, and that the existing Article 4 direction and the current planning policy has been ineffective in a sense in combination. And the key recommendation of that piece of work is a stronger policy approach is required for Preston. Next slide, please. This is just an extract from the evidence-based document, and this table shows how many approvals and refusals Preston has had for HMOs since the introduction of the Article 4. You can see there's been a high number of applications that have come to the development management team for C4 use that wouldn't normally come through the planning system with this Article 4 in place. There's only been 2 refusals, but notably for one large HMO, which was recently for a 30-bedroom HMO. Next slide, thank you. This map shows the distribution of HMOs across Preston's main urban area. The data has been taken from the licence register, which is held by the housing team within the council. So the purple shows HMOs that are exempt from licensing, and the red dots show HMOs that are licensed. So licensed HMOs are subject to mandatory licensing criteria, and that's for properties that are occupied by 4 or more residents. So the map is showing that there is a large cluster in city centre wards such as the city centre, Plungington and Deepdale, but there are some scattered in other wards across the main urban area. Next slide, thank you. This table just breaks down what you've seen on the map beforehand and just pulls out some of those figures. So it's split up between licensed HMOs and licensed exempt HMOs. As of November 2024, there was 917 HMOs in Preston. Of these, 611 were exempt from licensing and 306 were licensed properties. And there we can see again that it's the city centre, Deepdale and Plungington wards that have the highest total of properties.
Georgia, can I just ask, does this include student accommodation?
So this data here, there's different definitions of HMOs. This is just using the housing definition.
So this isn't student accommodation then?
No, so there is some data within the evidence document though that does include student accommodation, and that's taken from a council tax definition. So sometimes the figures do look a little bit different. Next slide, thank you. These are some known issues of high numbers or high concentrations of HMOs that are discussed throughout the report. So these include antisocial behaviour, intensification of residential properties, poor quality accommodation, reduction in family housing within the urban areas. There's also been reports of problem with on-street parking and also bins and other waste facilities. And this is overall causing a detrimental impact on street scene and cleanliness in some areas. Next slide, thank you. These are just a few images that have been taken from Sean's work on the conservation area appraisals. And all the images on the slide are HMO properties, and this is just highlighting some of the problems that have been brought to our attention, such as the bins, fly tipping, and we've got multiple doorbells there which are within the conservation area. Next slide, thank you. It's back to you, thanks.
Yeah, it's back to me again now, so thank you. So I'm just going to talk you through the planning controls and what we're doing now. So next slide, please. So this graphic here shows you the changes that we're proposing in the planning controls. So you saw the earlier slide that showed you whether the existing Article 4 directions, which were limited to around those Plungington, Deepdale and city centre wards linked to our known issues currently. We are now proposing a much wider Article 4 direction because we are seeing it spread out into those wider urban wards. So we are matching this up with what is going to be the urban area definition within the local plan. So it's a much far-reaching Article 4 direction. Next slide, please. So this just talks you through the different approaches to delivering an Article 4 direction. Now, we're delivering it without an immediate effect, but there are two approaches to bringing in an Article 4 direction. There's immediate and non-immediate. And the procedures, I think, are set out there as it quotes. I'm not going to read all that out for you. So the approach we are taking is to do a non-immediate Article 4 direction, and that's what we've done historically. And the reason we do that is that they do not take effect immediate, hence the term non-immediate, and they come into effect after a formal consultation and then a 12-month process to implement them. The reason that is the preferred approach is because if an area is such a large land mass, you would have to notify all the individual properties within there to do an immediate Article 4 direction, and it's considered too much work, and again there's significant costs. And so the proposed route and suggested route for this is the non-immediate route, where we do a consultation on that. And we don't then have to pay any compensation to any properties who would feel that they have been adversely impacted by the making of the Article 4 direction. So it's a minimum of 12 months, as I say, period, but not more than 2 years from doing that consultation to bringing in the Article 4 direction. So it's much more beneficial to do it that way. It does not apply retrospectively, as we've noted on the bottom here. So that means that any applications that come forward during that notification period will still be delivered under the existing planning regime, so they wouldn't be considered against this new policy. So we wouldn't be able to use this to say at this point in time that they'd have to apply for planning permission. As what we should also do as well at notes here, so when we do want to make the Article 4 direction or bring it into effect, we have to give notice of the direction. So to date, we're talking a little bit about the consultation that we've done, but we must give notice of the direction saying that the Article 4 will be come into force, and we'll have to allow representations on that for at least 21 days. And with the immediate route, it's slightly different of how you do that. With the non-immediate route, you have to do that with a formal consultation period and then confirm following that consultation period that you're going to bring it in on that specific date. Next slide, please. So to address the issues that Georgia highlighted, what we've noted to date with the Article 4 direction that's in place, although it has been effective in that it has required planning applications to come forward, you'd have noted from the information that we put forward, of the 77 applications, we've only refused 2. And that is because we do not have a planning reason in all cases to refuse a HMO on. So to enable us to have a greater restriction on the number that come forward, that is why we are having the Article 4 direction and the policy here. So ringed on here for you is a bit that specifically applies to Preston in Part 2 of the policy, which states within our Article 4 direction area, proposal to convert HMOs or expand existing HMOs will not be permitted. So we've effectively have an Article 4 direction that removes permitted development rights from C3 to C4, meaning that everybody who wants to do an HMO either under the sui generis approach where they had to apply for planning permission, and now the C3 to C4 has to apply for planning permission, and then the further control we have on that is to have that refusal of planning permission. If we only had the policy and not the Article 4 direction, we would still be having developments come forward onto permitted development rights from C3 to C4. And if you only had the HMO Article 4 direction, you'd have the no ban. So that's why we have to do the two together. Next slide, please. So this just sets out the consultation, and Sean's going to talk you through this.
Yeah, hi. So this consultation is for the Article 4 review, so this isn't for the formal process. So before we start the formal process, we wanted to go out to the public and get their opinions on it, on our proposal. So we did this in conjunction with the Regulation 19 consultation for the Central Lancashire Local Plan, which ran from the 20th of February to the 14th of April. So a 7-week period. Next slide, please. So we used various methods of publicity and consultation. So we had it on deposit at the town hall and various deposit points in the same boxes we had the local plans in. We had it on the council webpage with all digital copies, so available online. We had social media releases from the council's accounts. The council released an article on our own news page to promote it. We sent email notifications to consultees and those on our local plan database, and we held 5 in-person consultation events in conjunction with the Regulation 19 consultations. Next slide, please. So in response to the consultation, we had 24 unique representations. So I say 24 because we did have 25, however, one was a repeat representation. We had 79% of representations support the proposal, only 4% objected, and 17% neither supported or objected to the council's proposal. The key themes of support were in support of the council's own findings that that there was a link to higher crime rates. Parking is a key issue. We don't have evidence for a decrease in house prices. However, that's what the public thought about the issue, and the loss of community. So the impact on social cohesion and loss of family housing as a result of HMOs and their temporary nature. The objection related to comparison to other cities, though the other city wasn't named, and they stated that Preston doesn't have a major HMO issue, but our own evidence suggests 900 is a fair amount of HMOs, and those who neither supported or objected Questions about the capacity of the council, if officers have enough time or capacity to deal with an increased number of planning applications, and will the Article 4 impact upon freedom of residence, which Carolyn answered earlier, which it wouldn't unless they were trying to convert the house to a HMO. Next slide, please. So yeah, sorry. So the next steps is the process of implementation. So the decision will be taken to council in order to go down the non-immediate route, and we're hoping to do that in summer 2025, so this year. If approved, a further consultation will be undertaken, and then the Article 4 will be confirmed by council. And this will be in line with the progress of the emerging local plan, because we need the local plan policy, as Carolyn mentioned earlier, to really make this approach work, because the Article 4 direction on its own doesn't refuse planning permission, it just requires planning permission to be sought. So we need the policy approach as well. Next slide, please. And this is a useful link. I believe the slideshow will be sent around, but that links to our own webpage, and it has the evidence document, and we'll soon have the outcomes report, which is as of yet unpublished. Next slide.
No, very good presentation. Thank you for tag teaming very effectively there.
Question, Chair, if that's all right. Members at Chorley are concerned that we don't actually know where all of our HMOs are, particularly the non-licensed. How did you get that data, and how confident are you that you've mapped them all? Because obviously you're saying there's about 900 or something. Does that come from council tax? Does it come from building regs? How did you collect that data?
Yeah, so the planning team didn't have the data, so we went to our licensing team, who were also doing a piece of work at the same time. So they were looking at a housing benefit to map the license exempt HMOs. So what they had was a list of addresses which had licenses, and they also had a list of addresses that were exempt. And I mapped each address onto our GIS. So it was a long process. But that's how we got our data, and we do keep that up to date as and when HMOs are added onto the licensing register.
Okay, any other questions? I can't see the screen, so I don't know if you've got a hand up on the screen. You have to help me, Ben. Or take one of them screens down and show me the room, the virtual room.
Sorry, the amount of work that goes into preparing this, it's not a quick document to prepare. It has a lot of information that needs to be put in there. So we have got copies of these with us, and they say the link's on there, but we'll happy to leave these with you.
Okay, that's really helpful, and the link is really good. And we know it's an issue, as Councillor Hilton pointed out in Chorley. I'm sure it's an issue in South Ribble. I know it's an issue in West Lancs, and again, they've got a student population as well. And again, that crossover is of interest to me, how that works. But if this excludes that, then that's a big number you've got there, isn't it? So, okay. Are we happy with that? Chris?
Just a minor point, but an important one, I think, in terms of the issue that was raised about house prices. For those of you on planning committee or involved in planning, you'll be aware that house prices is not a material planning consideration, but it doesn't stop people from making those representations. I just wanted to clarify that.
The public have never accepted that, have they? So you can tell them to the blue in the face, but yes, it's always quoted. Right, okay, are we happy with that? We'll move on to the next item then. Thank you very much for that, really good approach. And we'll move on to the next one, which is the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, a brief update. And I believe, Ben, you're doing this, and you're going to keep it fairly brief, aren't you? Because it is a very large topic, and if we're here all night otherwise. So I don't know how many pages you've got in your notes, but...
I've only got 5 pages.
No.
Don't worry, they're all highlighted.
Some are highlighted, perfect.
And I've
Carry
got
on,
no
mate.
slides either.
And no slides. All right. Carry on.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've been asked to just provide a a contextual update really about the planning and infrastructure bill, which may touch on the local plan at times, but we'll just have to see how that progresses. So the bill was proposed in March and is currently at the report stage. And ultimately, the objectives of the bill is to make planning and infrastructure a bit easier. The objectives, it has four objectives, but ultimately that is what it's there for. So the main items of the bill that are going to interest the committee is a proposal for a national scheme of delegation, which does what it says on the tin, really. At the moment, the schemes of delegation are determined locally, but the government wants greater consistency and certainty in terms of the items or the particular types of planning applications that go to committee. It's not clear at the moment about what sort of criteria. The bill isn't explicit about exactly the criteria and the types of applications that would go to committee. But we may face a world where for example, allocated sites are determined exclusively by the council's chief planning officer and might not hit committee at all. The theory behind this is that the members would have already had input into the decision about what allocations go into the local plan, and so it just skips that stage. But like I say, we'll see. Planning committees will evolve. So the legislation currently sets out that the maximum number of people members on a planning committee will be 11. And we may be in a world where those maximum 11 members may have to qualify for that position through some sort of training, sort of governor approved training. So it may need a certificate. It doesn't seem like internal training is going to be enough. It seems as if we're moving to a world where there's going to be some sort of external accreditation or provider of that training, and each member will need a certificate to prove that they've undertaken that. Planning application fees are going to evolve. So currently these are nationally set. They were increased recently, but I think planners like myself in the sector, we have been calling for a much greater increase in planning fees. So the legislation proposes that these are set locally, but they must not exceed the usual costs of determining a planning application, and the income received from that application should be ring-fenced to go back into the service as opposed to be spent elsewhere. And the usual provisions are in there that the councils in setting their fees must consult and compile evidence to justify their fees. Probably the biggest change in the bill would be the reintroduction, if you like, of spatial development strategies. So this is a type of planning that we had prior to localism, where there was a system of what's called regional spatial strategies, which were much more in depth than what we have at the moment, which is called the duty to cooperate regime. And so the duty to cooperate regime is largely a sort of system of agreements or informal agreements and understanding between neighbouring districts. But I think what the government intends to do is move us much towards plan making in, for example, London and Greater Manchester, where the highest tier of government actually must use the new planning powers. Because although there are sort of spatial development strategies around, such as in Liverpool, they don't necessarily use planning powers. So we're certainly moving much towards, we're moving back to regional planning as a result of this bill. The bill also includes a what's called a nature recovery fund. I'll be honest, I'm a little baffled about what this is. What I believe it to be is, because we at the moment we have a system, excuse me, of biodiversity net gain, which comes through the usual development management process. And we also have a system of what's called local nature recovery strategies, which are proposed by, which theoretically should cover the entire of England. What the local nature recovery fund should be, or my belief, my understanding of what it is it gives Natural England, who is the government's sort of arm and authority on the natural world, it's making them a lot more proactive. So what they will be able to propose is what's called an environmental delivery plan, and then money. So, for example, Section 106 money would go into a nature recovery fund associated with the environmental delivery plan. I mean, historically, Natural England, a relatively passive organisation, you know, for a government agency. They're not like Homes England, for example. They're very active. They take quite direct action in the market. And I think what the Nature Recovery Fund and its associated delivery plans is just making Natural England a lot more proactive, really. There's also changes associated with infrastructure. So you might have heard of what's called the Banner Review, which looked into challenges into national infrastructure, and basically recommended to the government that there's too many opportunities to challenge national infrastructure projects proposed through what's called the NSIPS regime. And what this will do is just take those opportunities away, those excessive opportunities away, with the anticipated outcome that it would be easier to deliver infrastructure. There are other items, but I'll just end on compulsory purchase, or otherwise CPO. The bill will make CPO easier by having less stages to go through, and enable local authorities to buy land at its existing use value, whereas at the moment, where compulsory purchase often falls down is landowners will value their land at what's called hope value. So ultimately, it enables, or it should enable, local authorities to buy land that they need at the lower values. And that's it, Chair.
Thank you, Ben. Just where is it up to? What is the trajectory of it going forward?
Where is it up to?
At the start of the report stage. So when would it move to the next stage on, do you know?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Have you researched that? Anybody else knows?
Is it worth noting that there's 4 consultations actually out currently which are linked to this?
Just turn your mic on, please, Karen.
Sorry.
Right.
Well, I wasn't sure there's too many on. So it's worth noting that at the moment the government really kindly introduced one over the bank holiday weekend and then another on the Tuesday after the bank holiday weekend.
That's what they do, yeah.
So the speeding up building out was launched on the Sunday of the bank holiday, and that one is all around increasing the rate of delivery on housing sites. It's got a number of recommendations in there around how to get house builders building quicker, how to get them to report better, including different approaches for small builders. And there's a technical consultation on the side of that, so that's two. If you haven't picked up that there's two consultations on that one, it's not just the speeding out build out rates, there's another technical consultation which is very specific to the 5-year supply and how and information that's required and how developers are feeding in. So that's one. And the other one is around the tenure on sites, and there's proposals for different tenures on sites over 500 units, so that one's out as well. And then the other consultation that's out, which I'm sure you'll all be aware of, is the technical consultation on changes to planning committees, linked to the work that Ben was saying. And we've talked about it briefly last week. I haven't gone into the detail on this one because I know it's our development management team, but that talks around the quorum, the different numbers to make a quorum to enable decisions to be made, and different regimes for how different decisions will be made now. So those, not all decisions will go to planning committee. So those are all out. The consultation responses, I think, are the 7th of July for the speeding up, building out, the 9th of July for the one on the different tenures and the size of those the site thresholds, and then I think it's the 21st or towards the end of July for the planning committee one. Thanks, Chair.
And are we proposing to respond as a collective or individually or not? Is there any views from officers?
I'm not aware that it's been discussed collectively yet. I mean, we are looking to do a response after the 30th of June, but we are looking to prepare a response.
Your lives after the 30th of June, don't you? So yeah, so we can do a response then, can't we? Right. So you'll come back to members with that proposal going forward. Okay. Right. Is there any other questions about that report? No? Right. You might have to come back and do it all again, Ben, when we know where it's all going. Thank you for that report. Excellent. Right. We romp on to item 8, which is Central Lancashire Local Plan, Regulation 19, Publication Version Consultation Outcomes. Zoe.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so I'll have to give instructions to the next slide, please. So this is just to give you a flavour in terms of the consultation outcomes. Thank you. At the same time. So what I'll cover, three main things. Outcome of the Regulation 19 consultation that's just been undertaken, a bit of flavour in terms of the responses, the volume, and a breakdown of those responses by policy and theme. Next slide, please. Very quick recap, conscious of the time. In terms of the consultation, so this slide just reminds us, for those of us that need reminding where we are. So the Regulation 19 publication, we went out for consultation. We are required to consult as set out in our, it says SCIs there, that's Statement of Community Involvement. So we have 3 of those, one each, and that sets out how we will consult. We invited representations from just short of 2,000 subscribers to our mailing lists for the Central Lancashire Local Plan mailing list and then the Chorley mailing list. It's an omission on my part there that should list also South Ribble's mailing list and Preston South mailing list also, so that figure may be slightly higher. The consultation ran from Monday the 24th of February to 14th of April that we talked about earlier. We used an online digital survey on Citizen Space with hard copies of all materials available in our libraries and post offices, and we ran a number of drop-in events as well. Next slide, please. I've included the 3 decisions that the councils took with regards to the local plan, just by way of reminder, and particularly to emphasise the point that those 3 decisions that each council took delegated approval to submit to the respective directors. So this was Chorley's, so it talks about delegation of approval to Director of Planning and Property, which is Gail to my right, in terms of any identifying any necessary minor modifications as so necessary, and then also granting delegated approval to work with the inspector on any modifications. Next slide, please. You'll see here South Ribbles is virtually identical, and interestingly, an identical director also. Next slide, please. And Preston's slight differentiation here talks about typographical errors, clarifications, and policy map amendments. But again, delegates authority to submission to Chris Hayward, Director for Development and Housing. Next slide, please. So the next few slides just give members of the committee a flavour of the number of attendees at each event. So these were the Chorley events. You'll see here quite low numbers aside from Adlington, which was 31 attendees. Other than that, they were quite low. So a lot lower than we've seen in previous consultations, but for us at Chorley, we saw that as a positive, that there wasn't a lot of objections to the plan as consulted. And of those that attended, actually, generally, I would say the feedback was positive. Next slide, please.
Do you want me to go with the Preston for you?
You're all right. So this is the numbers for Preston. You'll see higher numbers at some of the events here. So better attendance or higher attendance than we saw at Chorley. And there is officers here at Preston if you want to ask questions at the end about those specific events. Next slide, please. And then for South Ribble also, you'll see here again, particularly higher numbers at Longton and then also at the Civic Centre as well for their consultation events. Next slide, please. So the scores on the doors in terms of numbers of responses or representations that we received. So you'll see response by type in the left-hand column and then by number in the right-hand column there. So in terms of digital or online responses, 117. Representations by email were high at 520. And members may recall that we had a prescribed form, which is recommended by the Planning Inspectorate, so we'd used that form. So we had 520 of those forms submitted, along with a number of PDFs as well. So a lot of material by email. And then just 6 by post, totaling 648. In hindsight, it would have been helpful to have the comparisons. Apologies, I didn't think to do that, but I think broadly it's a lot lower than we've seen in previous consultations, which again, you could interpret it as a positive in terms of the number of objections to the plan. Next slide, please. So in terms of representations from our prescribed bodies, so these are the people that we must consult with, we're required to, they're listed in regulations, and you'll see the name on the left-hand column there, and then on the right-hand column, whether we received a representation from that prescribed body or not. And no major surprises here. You know, quite often some of these bodies don't reply, and actually, for example, the Office of Road and Rail, Office of Rail Regulation, rather, their website specifically says that they do not engage in local plan consultation. So it just gives you a flavour, really, of the representations that we receive back from these bodies. Next slide, please. So representations received from our neighbouring strategic policy making authorities. So these are the ones I think Ben mentioned earlier about duty to cooperate. So these are the councils that we would have a duty to cooperate to engage with. Again, you'll see the list on the left-hand side of the council that we share a border with, and then on the right-hand column there, whether we received a representation from those councils or not. And again, where there's a no, we are engaging with those councils to absolutely be clear that there's no objections to the plan. It's quite likely that all will be captured in statements of common ground, and with the majority of those no's being in a positively worded statement of common ground along the lines of we're happy we didn't have any comments to make with regards to the Central Lancashire local plan. Next slide, please. So this slide just gives you a flavour in terms of other bodies that we received representations from. I won't go through them individually. Those representations will all be made public when we submit. But again, just all interesting comments, some positive, some with suggestions for improving the plan, but broadly, you know, nothing out of the ordinary. Next slide, please. So this is the representations received broken down into matters. So we got the volume of representations, but of those, quite a few had a number of issues or matters that they wanted to raise. So the next few slides just kind of give you a bit of a picture, looking at it from different angles. So this slide shows you the number of representations made specifically about Chorley sites, Preston sites, South Ribble sites, where comments were made specifically about the duty to cooperate, the plan as a whole, area profile, spatial vision, the housing trajectory, monitoring framework and evidence. So these were kind of big picture representations. Next slide, please. Again, looking at it from a different perspective. So this is by chapter of the local plan. So you can see here spatial strategy, housing. Housing is a big theme, and we see that throughout the representations and the analysis, as we'd expect. Transport 11, and then infrastructure 20 responses. Next slide, please. And then the next slides just break down that into further detail in terms of looking at specific numbers of representations received about a specific policy. So again, you've got the policy title there, and then you've got the number of representations. So just looking down the strategic policies, not huge numbers. I think the biggest number that we're looking at there is the housing allocations for South Ribble at 61, so that's HS3. And then you see the numbers dwindling. And interesting, actually, picking up on Carolyn's presentation earlier, HS10, the HMOs, only one representation made with regards to that specific policy.
That was the one you rejected.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so again, this continues that theme. So you'll see overall, they're very low numbers, 11 for economic growth, 12 for mixed-use allocations in Chorley. Again, very low numbers in that bottom table there. Hot food takeaways, just 2 representations received. Okay, next slide, please. Copies of these slides will be made available to members, by the way. Again, representations received per policy. Strategic policy, well-designed places, 17 responses. And again, generally lower than 10 for each of those, going down. Areas of separation, 10 responses. Landscape character, just 1 representation. Climate change of interest, 10 responses. So very low numbers really across all of those policies that took a long time to draft. Let it go. Next slide, please. Again, low numbers. So strategic transport priorities, 1 representation, sustainable and active travel 8, parking standards 2, infrastructure 7, developer contributions and plan obligations in 11. I think a lot of those were around affordable housing in particular, and then digital and communications infrastructure. Okay, next slide, please. So as members would expect, we are now taking account of all of those representations, considering all the matters raised. So with a fine-tooth comb, we've gone through all of those representations and the issues raised and considered them carefully. We've consulted with key partners, for example, Lancashire County Council, lots and lots of discussion regularly going on with the County Council across various teams. We've also engaged with our consultants who prepared our evidence for us, and then we've prepared a response to each of those matters raised, which will be published as we submit. And then we've also identified any minor amendments to the local plan, which you remember from the decisions that we looked at earlier. So we are able to do that. So there will be a schedule of those minor amendments that will be submitted alongside the plan. That's the end of this part 1 presentation. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Zoe. Has anybody got any specific points on that quite detailed report, which will be circulated after this meeting to everybody? No, I think that's a fairly comprehensive update. Thank you, Zoe. And obviously, it is interesting in the different areas and the different focuses that people have responded on, but we will have to publish all that information as part of moving forward in due course. Right. In that case, then, we have finished the part 1 of the meeting. Oh, sorry, no, we haven't. I'll lie. We've got the date of future meetings first, which is the current next meeting is scheduled for Monday the 3rd of December at South Ribble. However, given that's quite a long way away, it's not Christmas for a while yet, guys, you'll be pleased to know, an additional meeting has been talked about for September as a staging post between the submission, potentially in the end of June, as we heard before, between then and getting any response from inspectors. So we are looking to schedule a meeting in early September, but that will be confirmed once we've got any kind of feedback on the submission we make at the end of June. Is that correct? Yeah. So keep your diaries clear for that, and we will let you know as soon as possible. But obviously, once the proposal goes in at the end of June, we're in the hands of inspectors being appointed and updates back from central government, and we don't know quite how much work they're going to do over the summer holidays. Not much, if any experience is anything to go by, but we'll see where we are. Everybody happy with that? Caleb?
You'll have to accept my apologies for if it's in the first 2 weeks in September.
Are you going on holiday?
I'm in a nicer country.
I can't believe you aren't putting South Ribble at the forefront, Councillor Tomlinson, but yes, we will. I'm sure you have a substitute waiting in the wings. Good stuff. Right, if everybody's happy with that, then we are going to look to move into part 2. So I need a proposer to exclude the press and public. Please, does somebody want to propose that? Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Somebody second that? Over here, yep. All those in favour, please show. And if the public and press are here, they should leave now.